Hey patrons, another month, another Q&A video. We've got some questions for April. We actually have a bunch of questions, some of them pretty good, so let's dive right into those. Brandon Cole asked, do you have any plans for another issue of the Starcaster Chronicles? Absolutely, I have plans for a bunch more issues, but more to the point, I know it's been a little while, but that is actually the next thing on my slate, so to speak. I'm doing some one-shots right now, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm actually prepping issue 6. To get into in the next, week or two, hopefully. We'll launch that and then just, plow right through. So yes, more Starcaster Chronicles very, very soon. Dave Houston has a great question. He says, you've done a few slice of life type comics. How often do you get inspired that way versus how often do you feel like sharing those types of comics? And is that an issue? I imagine what you're referring to is, the more personal stuff, like, usually involving, me being a dad and my kids and being a gamer dad and that sort of thing. There's there's definitely a balancing act there. There's a balancing act in regards to this entire thing that I do, in terms of like how much do I let you guys into my life. I mean, I want to let you into my life, but I have at the same time I have a family, and the internet's a creepy place and a dangerous place, and so you kind of have to balance, like, what do I share with you, what do I keep private for myself and for us, and not just for safety, but also just for to have some stuff that's just mine. So that's always something I'm considering, and it's definitely when it comes to making comics about my interactions with my kids, whether or not they're exaggerated or what, that's definitely something I take into consideration, how much to share and when. And so I try only to do it when I feel like I really have something to say about it, something that other parents can relate to, something that they'll get a kick out of. That sort of thing, when I feel like I can say something that maybe hasn't been said yet is a shared experience for that other, like I said, other people can relate to, and as we move forward and the kids get older and the dynamics and the relationships evolve, I'll have to continually evaluate what I'm including in the comic, and that sort of a thing. Vlad wanted to know, being a gamer dad, how much do your kids play video games and do they like them? My kids definitely like video games, but they don't actually play a lot of them. They're still very young. They're 2 and 4. And so, I've played some stuff with the 4-year-old. Mostly we do co-op stuff. He got into the Skylander series for a little while. I played Mario Odyssey with him. He got to be the hat. He enjoys watching me play, so he really liked watching me play Monster Hunter, for instance, fighting the big dinosaurs, as he called them, and stuff like that. So there's some exposure there, but they're not really at the ages, and they play some stuff on the tablets occasionally, like especially when the grandparents come to town, because they both have tablets and they have some games on the tablets for the kids. So they're exposed to it a little bit, but they're not really at the age yet where where I want to let them just sit down and kind of do it on their own. So right now when they do it, it's something that they do alongside me. And then I think once they start to be able to read, which is right about where my 4-year-old is at now. He's starting to kind of he knows all of his letters, all of his sound. He's starting to learn to spell and read and that sort of thing. And then once he has a foundation built with that, then I'll start letting him get into games a little bit more, because he'll be able to read the menus, navigate that sort of stuff. So I know I get that question a lot, because obviously I play video games. They're a big part of my life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm allowing my kids to just veg on games all the time. I kind of have some some very strong feelings about everything in moderation, and I really want them to be readers before they are gamers. Bruno asks kind of an interesting question. He wants to know, he says, do you have any ritual before drawing? Something that you have to do to make sure you'll be able to concentrate on the task? And it's interesting because I kind of had to I kind of had to stop and think about it, because I guess maybe I do have some little things, but they're all just so, I mean, there's nothing like, I don't sit down, I don't meditate, I don't, I don't have like an altar that but there are little things that I tend to do. Like, first of all, when I come in, I sit down to work, I always have to make sure I have a glass of water ready to go, because I have to stay hydrated throughout the day. Once I sit down and I get into work, hours can start passing by very quickly. And so I need to make sure that I'm remembering to drink. I also, once I'm past the writing phase of things and sitting down to do the actual artwork, I also need to have something playing. Like I need to have my headphones on, so I need to, it's either music or like movies or TV or something like that, depending on what I'm in the mood for. So I have to find something, on Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, HBO, whatever. I have all, all the digital streaming services or Pandora or iTunes, or I have, so I have to set something up, to put my headphones on to kind of drown out any environmental noise, which in my case will be, the kids in the other room playing or something like that, so that I can focus on what I need to do, and to a degree turn off my, my dad radar and if I hear them fighting or something, feeling the need to get up and go be like, knock it off, like share with your brother, that sort of stuff, and because, again, because like the drawing part of things is very kind of mechanical, and a lot of it's almost on autopilot in a way. I like to kind of just like zone in a way. And so having something playing that I can kind of sort of tune into but not need to totally focus on, which is why I can't watch anything with subtitles. Stuff that's like pretty much all action is wasted on me because I need to be looking at what I'm doing. I'm not sitting just staring at the television screen. So, stuff like that. There are little things that I set up and kind of a groove that I get into, but, there's not a lot that I would, really point to as a ritual per se. There's nothing, I don't sit down, spin 3 times in my chair. I don't do, nothing like that. But, there's a lot of little things that I guess become part of a routine. All right. And finally this month, and there were more questions. I hope you guys will just ask those again next week. I try to only do 3 to 4 questions a month on these. But anyway, James asks, and this is another really good one. How did you come to the decision to make Lucas gay? Was this part of the original storyline that never got told? And was that why he couldn't keep that one girl around? So what's interesting about this is that in a way it kind of wasn't even a decision. In that, like when I was sitting down and kind of envisioning these characters for the reboot, and I've stated in the past that I didn't want to drastically change the characters' personalities, but I did need to tweak things to put personalities first and to make them more 3-dimensional characters and to give them, more of a backstory, more of like, some personality traits, some interests, some this and that. So when I was sitting down to kind of envision the newer version of these characters, like I said, it wasn't even like a debate, really. It wasn't like, should he be gay? Should he be straight? It was just kind of like he just was gay, and it was a bit of a non thing. Like it just was like, okay, he's Ethan, he's a superhero. He's Ethan's partner in the store. He's gay. He's this. He's that. Like I said, it just and it's weird. It sounds a little bit cliche and pretentious to say this, but it does hold true in some cases that when you write characters and when you've been writing them for a long time, and although these are newer versions of Ethan and Lucas, it's still a lot of it remains the same. So in that sense, I've been writing these characters for 16 years. And so when you write characters like that, and you've been writing characters for a long time, a lot of the time they do tell you what they're, who they are and how they'll react. So, I mean, obviously there are cases where I am making decisions for the characters, and really I'm making all the decisions for the characters, right? I mean, I'm telling them I'm deciding what they're going to say and what. But like I said, in a weird way, it's almost like I'm not sometimes. Like if I put them into I can craft a situation, but then when it comes to, what are they going to say in that situation, it almost feels like I just know these characters so well that I know what they'll say. It's not really a big crafting process to it. It's just sort of like I said, them telling me what they would say in that situation, and that's how it was kind of with Lucas's sexuality and had I continued the original storyline much further, would we have eventually gotten to the point where Lucas realized like, hey, maybe the reason I struggle so much with women is, that I'm not really into women. Maybe, would we have gotten to that point? It's definitely a possibility. It definitely feels like maybe that's, deep down, that's why. But again, I mean, obviously we never got to that point, and this time around, it's just kind of felt like what it was. I mean, when I was kind of designing this new continuity and everything, there was a lot of stuff that just sort of fell into place. The dynamics between these characters, which are a lot more, Scott, Lucas, Ethan, they're a lot more intertwined than they were in the original, where, and I've said this in the past too, I've always hated how I introduced Scott. But again, it was very early days. I didn't know what I was doing for the most part. I was throwing stuff out, having fun, whatever. But long story short, I'm not happy with it. This time I'm much happier with just how everything connects together, how they know each other, what their motivations for being together and being in this situation together, which is obviously as superheroes, it's a very interesting dynamic to be in. So a lot of that stuff, but like I said, a lot of that stuff just kind of naturally falls into place, and it kind of tells me what the situation is. When it comes down to it, this is really just another case of that. Okay, and that is all the questions we're going to do for this month. Thank you so much for asking. If I didn't get to your question, just toss it at me next month, and I'll try and get to it then. Thank you guys all so very much for your continued support. It means a lot to me, especially right now where I'm kind of in this transition with advertising. I don't know, because I left the company I was with and signed up with a new company. I don't know how that's going to shake out yet. We're set up with them and we have the ads running and that sort of stuff, but I don't even know what that income is going to look like. Because like I said, it's a whole different company. It's a whole different thing. I hope it'll be comparable to, what I was making with the other company. I don't know if that's going to be the case yet. So in the meantime, knowing I have the support from my patrons, that's kind of huge for me. And I do appreciate your continued support. Believe it or not, I hate to say this. I hate to say that we live in a world where this matters to people, but I did actually, if you can believe it, lose. I mean, of course you can believe it. I did actually lose some patrons as a result of, the revelation that Lucas was gay. I received some very, we'll say, not nice exit comments from people canceling their subscriptions as a result of that. Some very evangelical stuff, which, again, I'm obviously it's their money. I can't ask them to support something that they don't personally believe in, but, it is what it is. And so to the rest of you, though, I very much appreciate your continued support. And I just want you to know that it means a lot to me. It means a lot to my family, that you guys support me in this very direct manner. So, thank you again for that. And again, that's it for April, and we will see you in May.